Hello, I'm Greg Stachowski. I'm a NAC from Poland, and also I've been involved in Astronomy Olympiads for quite a few years now. And I wanted to talk to you about what I see as the purpose of Olympiads and how they can help with astronomy education, and give an example of the International Olympiad on Astronomy and Astrophysics. So the original intellectual Olympiads were modeled on the Olympic Games and tried to follow the same ideals as those from the Olympic movement. This is a quotation from the International Olympic Committee, and it explains the idea of the Olympic movement as to build a peaceful world through educating youth through sport without discrimination, and the Olympic spirit of mutual understanding and friendship and fair play. And this was the same idea behind the Olympiads as competitions for intellectual endeavor in the sciences, in linguistics and other topics. So the Olympiads are competitions which follow the ideas of the Olympic movement and try to channel the natural competitiveness of young people towards learning and self-development. And as such, Olympiads should aim to reward not competition, but personal achievement, so that the students are competing, as it were, against themselves, against their own goals, and trying to achieve those. And one of the benefits of Olympiads is because they reach beyond the typical school curriculum, they encourage students to learn independently and think for themselves, and these are useful skills for later on in their careers. And finally, another advantage, especially of international Olympiads, is that it gives students an opportunity to meet other young people like themselves interested in astronomy, and also other young people from other places, other cultures, visit other places, other cultures, and broaden their horizons in that way, and in this sense fulfill the goals of the Olympic movement in promoting friendship and solidarity. So as compared to astronomy as taught in schools, in many countries astronomy is a very small part of the curriculum, maybe part of physics, maybe part of geography, but not usually taught as a separate subject. And often textbooks, where they exist, lag behind current research. They don't necessarily cover the latest topics in astronomy and astrophysics. And also school problems, textbook problems, are often purely theoretical or constructed artificially so that the answer always comes out in the right way. And through Olympiads, through solving Olympiad-type problems, students can experience a far wider range of topics in astronomy and astrophysics by following a curated syllabus which establishes what topics are part of the Olympiad. And this can cover more recent research. The Olympiad is much more flexible in that sense, and they also can use real data and analyze that, use numerical methods, use error analysis, use statistics, which again is often something which is maybe neglected in many schools' curricula, and use that to extract scientific conclusions from real data, which is messy, which has errors, which has outliers. Again, broadening their horizons in terms of learning about astronomy and astrophysics. So other additional benefits which can accrue to students who participate, first of all, training programs, when they're established for participants of Olympiads, can easily be extended to larger groups of students, and more people benefit than just those students who are participating directly. And also participants in some countries have tuition grants or university entry points as a result of participating in Olympiads or achieving medals or certificates in Olympiads. Teachers also benefit from the resources which are prepared for Olympiads. Syllabus I've already mentioned. Questions are usually freely available, certainly from the Astronomy Olympiads, they're freely available, and they can be used by teachers as a resource. And The questions are also translated into the local languages of students, and this is particularly useful for countries where maybe the base of textbooks in that language of that country isn't very large. Maybe problem books don't exist, haven't been translated. The teachers can use the translated Olympiad questions to teach astronomy, and these come with solutions which are already prepared, so there's a minimal amount of work for the teacher from that respect. And based on the questions, several problem books have been published, again in a number of languages, which present a deeper discussion of the problems and the topics involved. Those are also a useful resource which teachers can use. There are also social benefits for Olympiads. I've already mentioned students interacting with other like-minded young people, but they also interact with astronomers, professional astronomers, with amateur astronomers, researchers who participate in these Olympiads, organize these Olympiads. They in turn have to work with pupils. They have to work with school level problems, which they don't necessarily do during their day-to-day work. Teachers, again, mix with these people and encounter problems which are based on latest research, which again, they may not necessarily be up to speed on. Planetarium staff, amateur astronomers, they're all involved. And this can often lead to long-term friendships, long-term collaborative relationships among all of these groups, which are useful for developing astronomy education in their home countries, in various countries. And students can often, having participated in Olympiad, be persuaded that astronomy is a worthwhile career for them, something that they're interested in, something that's worth doing. And their parents can also be persuaded on that. Sometimes there's social pressure on students to study medicine or engineering. This can also be used to counter that and to bring students into astronomy as a career prospect. There are also what I've named halo effects from Olympiads, from the International Olympiads especially, which is they've resulted in the startup of national competitions in various countries where students want to participate. That in turn has propagated to more students in more schools participating in more astronomy education in these countries. Again, regional Olympiads, workshops, European Workshop on Astronomy and Astrophysics, Latin American Astronomy Olympiad, those have arisen in the wake of the International Olympiads on Astronomy and Astrophysics, and a junior competition will be hopefully starting next year. Olympiads also attract media attention, they attract public attention, government attention. That can also be leveraged to more resources for astronomy education. And the resources that are brought for an Olympiad, telescopes, for example, other materials, those can then be distributed as well, used by schools, used by clubs for promoting astronomy, for educating in astronomy afterwards. So to take the International Olympiad on Astronomy and Astrophysics as an example of how an Olympiad can work, an Olympiad can be run. This has been running since 2007. There are about 50 countries that are participating, and each country sends teams of 5 students along with 2 adult team leaders, and the host country provides all the accommodation or living expenses for that. Questions, I've already mentioned, they are translated into individual languages, and they're vetted and checked by the board of team leaders to make sure there are no errors, to make sure that there are no issues with language, with individual curricula in different countries, so that it's the best competition that it can be. And students are awarded prizes, medals, certificates based on their own personal achievement, based on achieving objective goals, so 50%, 60%, 70% of the total available score, rather than competing directly against each other. And in between the competition rounds, there are social and cultural events which promote friendships, solidarity, and these international relationships. The Olympiad consists of 5 rounds. 3 of them are individual. There's a theoretical round, which is classical derivations, formulae, data analysis using real data, using numerical methods, statistics, error analysis, these kind of things that aren't necessarily propagated in the school curriculum. Observational rounds using naked eye, telescope, maybe planetarium simulations, depending on weather, for example. There's a team competition with mixed teams from different countries. This is often very good for students who don't necessarily have developed exam techniques. They often do well in this. And a poster competition for students to prepare conference-style posters based on their own observations, their own astronomy interests outside of the Olympiad. So these are all things that can happen in an Olympiad, in the International Olympiad on Astronomy and Astrophysics. So as a conclusion, we're running out of time. The Olympiads are a way to introduce students and teachers to current science, bring them up to speed, expand their horizons in astronomy and astrophysics, and they're just another tool to develop and promote astronomy education. And other talks in this session will expand on this. And I just wanted to leave you with the map. As you can see, quite a lot of the world is already participating in Olympiads, but there's still a lot to do in Africa, in South America, and we would welcome your help in expanding this tool to those parts of the world. So thank you very much for listening.